At the beginning of the 21st century, few people in hip-hop had the multimedia appeal of DMX. It wasn't just that he was pumping out one chart-topping multi-platinum album after the other, alongside some of the greatest anthemic hits of his chosen genre. He was also dabbling in other things. For instance, a starring role in 1998's cult classic, Belly, led to subsequent spots in Romeo Must Die and Exit Wounds, which made some pretty good box office. And he still was visible on the music front, embarking on the Anger Management Tour alongside acts such as Limp Bizkit and Godsmack toward the end of 2000. Considering DMX's recording cadence, a fourth album could have dropped around December of 2000. But that didn't happen, and it wasn't just because of a tour. DMX had run afoul of the law numerous times since his teenage years, and his legal issues carried over into his period of superstardom. Back on March 3rd, he had been arrested for speeding and failing to signal on the Kensington Expressway in Cheektowaga, New York, hours after a Rough Riders and Cash Money concert in nearby Buffalo. Granted, this was far from the first legal issue DMX had to deal with since he became one of hip-hop's brightest stars. The March 2000 arrest in the Buffalo suburb, however, created a snowball effect that threatened to prove deleterious to DMX's career. Consider this: his record label, Def Jam, didn't need to primarily rely on him to grow and maintain their fortunes. It wasn't 1998 anymore. Jay-Z had achieved his breakthrough with Hard Knock Life, and by September 2001 had 4 consecutive multi-platinum albums that had debuted at #1, one more than DMX. Plus, Jay had better performing pop hits, and his Rockefeller Records, boosted by a partnership with Def Jam, was producing signees, some of whom required more than a cursory look. Ja Rule was also enjoying a streak of his own, with both his sophomore and third albums going multi-platinum and debuting at #1, as well as achieving something that eluded both DMX and Jay-Z, a #1 Billboard Hot 100 hit. Ja accomplished that, with a gruff voice and melodic delivery reminiscent of X. Def Jam's southern expansion can't be ignored, as a rambunctious former radio DJ by the government's name of Christopher Bridges was throwing them bows in the ATL area. DMX was gradually losing his spot as rap's undisputed top dog, and just when things couldn't get worse for him, this happened. 9/11 was a national time-encapsulating event of devastation like no other. At that moment of shock, disbelief, and outrage that any foreign force would be audacious enough to attack American soil, citizens of every color and creed sought to bond together in a way that would have otherwise not happened. Understandably, anything capable of dampening spirits any further was discouraged, and that cast some doubts on how well an album named The Great Depression, with artwork consisting of a pair of eyes set opaquely in a green-hued background of a dilapidated dock, would do commercially, regardless of how highly regarded its author was. Before the release of The Great Depression on October 23, 2001, DMX released 2 singles, We Right Here and Who We Be. The former, which merges the rhyming cadence of What's My Name with a sunny beat reminiscent of It's All Good, could have been a sizable hit when it was released in August, but it tanked. The latter, however, performed a lot better, thanks to DMX matching each 2-note riff in the strident, Queen-esque rock guitar-fueled beat, with a collection of syllables tantamount to a boxer hitting his target with each jab and hook with enviable ease. The lyrical content, traveling from the envy that fortune and fame generates, through allusions to his legal troubles and the seemingly inescapable shadow of the hood, is delivered with so much passion that it easily could be extended from DMX's personal experiences and perils of the ghetto to symbolize the overall doggedness of Black Americans. And upon its release 2 weeks after 9/11, it resonated enough on a national scale to become a Billboard Hot 100 hit, peaking at number 60. We Right Here and Who We Be were produced by Philly beatmaker Black Key, emblematic of the personnel changes for DMX's 4th album cycle. For the first time, X was an executive producer alongside the Dean brothers and even had a hand in 6 of the album's 17 tracks. Dame Grease, PK, and Swiss Beats are still around. But Swiss was no longer the dominating presence he was on DMX's second and third albums, and more contributors outside the Rough Riders camp were brought in for this project. The Great Depression was going to be DMX making boss moves. He must have been inspired by Jay-Z's Rock La Familia showcase the year before, because the Great Depression was where he unveiled his own company, Bloodline Records. Like Jay-Z's Rockefeller, Bloodline would be distributed by Def Jam, already a formidable force that had been merged in 1999 under the Universal Music Group umbrella as the Island Def Jam Music Group. However, there will be no equivalent to the Rock La Familia album from DMX and Bloodline. A few cuts instead would do, attached as bonuses to the Great Depression's last track. The buying public was already vaguely familiar with Big Stan, a former Rough Riders signee who had appeared on DMX's For My Dogs off the first album and had songs on 2 movie soundtrack albums, one of which was for DMX's Exit Wounds. Loose Cannon was also on For My Dogs, and Jinx and Kashmir were complete unknowns. With DJ K-Slay as the host, all 4 MCs appear on the first hidden track, Straight Out the Kennel, where they take turns freestyling over beats from DMX's second and third albums. They all perform decently. More hardened battle bars await with Drag On, My Son, and DMX himself in the harrowing piano and violin soundscape of Problem Child. And Big Stan, apparently propped as Bloodline's flagship signee, shows up again, this time alongside DMX and Mike Geronimo for Davin Prestige Vanderpool's Scarface-style synth-pop beat in Still Real. All 3 cuts are above average at best, and it begs the question, why weren't they pushed to the main stage in place of other tracks? Because if there's anything the Great Depression needed more of, it's a consistency of quality. The opening track, Sometimes, is just a recitation that feels like a prayer reject, and the first true song, School Street, finds Dame Grease's cinematic danger completely taken over by shoutouts and gunshots. That stuff is better suited for the end of an album, and we all know that DMX did not end his albums with shoutouts. Besides, this isn't the early 90s. Thankfully, the previously mentioned Who We Be and We Right Here are among the next few cuts, and Trina Mo, amid Grease's castanet-riddled Latin bounce, is DMX rightfully pounding his chest about his dominance in the rap game via his record sales and Billboard mainstay status, and he even flings out a daring couplet. I was here before most of y'all careers were born. I'll be here when y'all careers are gone, still strong. The partly self-produced Bloodline anthem is a mosh pit-worthy song, another declaration of DMX's preeminence as new record label owner while maintaining his chart-topping success. Told you go ahead, drop a few albums, I'll do a movie. But when I come back, come on dog, respect my slot. Ain't no getting where I fit it, jump straight to the top. It's now toward the end of the first half of the Great Depression, which means that it's time for the ladies. And Damien. Shorty Was the Bomb is Grease merging xylophone and harpsichord notes for DMX to spin a tale about a one-night stand gone wrong. And while, according to him anyway, the woman he slept with was loose and attempted to trap him with a pregnancy, X is hilariously bemused by how mesmerized he still is with that lone moment of sexual pleasure. Damien should have been nodding with approval at that act of infidelity. Rather, he's unhappy because, you see, DMX abandoned him back in Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. After his absence in And Then There Was X, he's back in Damien 3, the best entry in the Damien trilogy. PK draws inspiration from La Schifrin's The Human Fly off the Enter the Dragon soundtrack to create a galloping soundbed where Damien is obviously hurt that DMX had seemingly abandoned him. Hey yo D, it's your D. But you forgot about me, you been eating real good lately. And get a shout out from your last album, would you hate me? But X ain't down for the guilt trip. Throughout the song, he resists falling into Damien's trap, and he even turns to God himself to keep Damien out of his life. In retrospect, considering what eventually happened to DMX's personal and professional fortunes, Damien, sadly, was always going to be in the shadows. Then is the songstress's time to shine. Stephanie Mills is up first with When I'm Nothing, with DMX, Grease, and Black Key lifting her 1979 top 40 hit, What You Gonna Do With My Lovin', The upbeat mixture of disco and funk is enough to give DMX's pondering lyrics about the values of loyalty as a successful artist the glitter it needs. Next up is Faith Evans, no stranger to DMX's world. After all, she turned in some vocal work for How It's Going Down in the first album. This time, her contribution is a lot more immersive. In the emotive I Miss You, with Kid Cold sampling George Benson's 1976 Grammy-winning hit This Masquerade, Evans not only sings the consoling chorus, but also chips in portions of Amazing Grace. Significant because it's a hymn that has been used for decades in Black American funerals and memorial services. In this case, DMX turns I Miss You into one part's tribute, two parts family report to his recently deceased grandmother, who, considering his abusive mother and largely absent father, was like both parents in one. So, even with the slow start, the Great Depression is front-loaded with the best songs in the album. It does fall apart though in the second half. X's talent for coming up with catchy choruses is still intact. That's the only bright element of number 11, coincidentally the 11th cut in the album, and I'm a Bang. DMX sounds tired with his standard bars of aggression, and the plain beats provided by PK and Just Blaze respectively don't help matters. What's worse, the skits that bookend I'm a Bang feel like wasted tracks that either should have been amalgamated with the song or discarded entirely. Swiss Beats finally shows up with You Could Be Blind, featuring his then-girlfriend, soon-to-be wife, and later ex-wife, Mashonda. But just like the previously mentioned two songs, the tough guy rhymes are random. Just like Coming For Ya of the previous album, the chorus is juvenile, and Swiss's beat sounds like something left on the cutting room floor during the recording sessions for Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. Talk about a leftover. Not even the prayer and God song combo typical of DMX's album Till Ends is reliable. Prayer 4 perplexingly begins with the following claim.
Father God, I am just learning how to pray. Bear with me.
That's not what you want to hear from a guy who at this point has 3 prayers on wax. And considering the trouble he still managed to get himself into, Prayer 4 is arguably the first time where DMX's appeal to the Most High to help him get on the right path feels insincere. And that aura of insincerity bleeds into the closing song, A Minute for Your Son, where Swiss Beats shows up for the second and final time. It's a mixture of gratitude and appeal to the big guy in the sky. But for the first time, there's no conversation. God is silent, perhaps calling X bluff, but still around to listen to what he has to say. The song plods for almost 5 minutes, with a Swiss beat that feels like a depressing loop. Not exactly an offering worthy of Old Testament immortalization. The Great Depression is depressing. The first time when DMX feels mortal, and not in a good way. Granted, it secured the X-Man's 4th consecutive number 1, and it landed 2 singles on the Billboard Hot 100. But getting only a platinum plaque for record sales was a major descent from the dizzying heights of DMX's first 3 albums. That downturn really isn't surprising, due to the growing perception that DMX would not deliver much to differentiate this album from its predecessors. Plus, with its scattershot quality, undoubtedly exacerbated by legal derailments, The Great Depression is not only the weakest LP from X at that time, but it also marks the beginning of the rapper's reversal of fortunes. From here on out, DMX would need more than a prayer and a pseudo-religious song per album to get him back on track.